All right, here we go. So this is your body on poor fuel, just like that supercar, it burnt up. So when you look at this supercar, you think to yourself, what type of fuel would you put in this car? I don't know what happened to those guys. I don't know if it was the wrong fuel, what it was. At the end of the day, though, their car burnt up, their engine burnt up. So we look at our bodies like a supercar, and if you're putting the incorrect fuel in it, so a bad diet, your engine's going to burn up. You're not going to perform at your best. So, what is a diet? Like I said, tonight's presentation is all about nutrition. Once again, I'm assuming that you are training the way you need to train to to gain muscle. And now, so if we don't have the proper diet, then you're not going to get that adaptation you're looking for. So, a diet for us refers to just how much food you're consuming, what time you're eating it, and what type of foods you're consuming. So you'll hear people like, oh, I'm on this diet or that diet. I can eat this, I can't eat that. At the end of the day, diet is just what you consume. So we don't look at it like a restriction of calories. We just look at it like, what are we eating? When are we eating it? And how much of that are we eating? So, what are the different types of fuels? So, we have carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Carbohydrates, you have simple and complex carbohydrates. And simple carbohydrates, they break down much faster. So they're what's called high glycemic. So they get broken down into sugars faster, and that sugar in your body is called glucose. The complex carbohydrates, they get broken down a little bit slower. They provide that steady release of glucose into our bloodstream. And complex carbohydrates will increase the feelings of fullness and improve energy levels. So in the body, carbohydrates are the primary preferred energy source. Uh, Carbs, they maintain and replenish glycogen stores. Glycogen is the body's stored form of glucose. Glucose is broken down from carbohydrates in the body, and every carbohydrate that we consume gets broken down into glucose. Having the right amount of carbs in the diet allows us hockey players to train longer and harder. If we have adequate carb consumption, then it's essential that our body will prevent breaking down protein in the muscle for energy. If we don't consume enough carbs, the body will break down muscle over fat because fat takes longer to break down for energy. And so when we're training, our body needs that energy right away. And so that's why if we don't have enough carbs in our diet, our body will start breaking down muscle to supply our body for energy. So we got to make sure we eat enough carbohydrates so we don't start breaking down muscle, all right? We want to try and gain as much muscle as possible. So if we're not eating enough carbohydrates, we're going to start breaking down the thing we're trying to gain. So some examples of simple carbohydrates, fruits, fruit juices, dairy products, baked goods, candies, chips, watermelon, things that are broken down really, really quick. Those are all simple carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates are whole grains or oatmeals or brown rice, quinoa, vegetables. Any like dark green leafy vegetable is going to be very complex. It's going to take a while to break down. So, in that glycemic index, it's what's used to determine uh, if something is a simple or complex carbohydrate. So, if something's higher on that glycemic index, that means it's going to get broken down into sugar faster than something that is lower on that index. So, when should these carbs be eaten? So, high glycemic carbs should be consumed in the 2 hours immediately post exercise. So, we want those simple carbohydrates right after we're done training, right? We know that they get broken down faster into sugars, and our body, they need those sugars to help replenish our glycogen, which is our stored sugar. So, think within 2 hours after, that's your nutrition window. You want to consume 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight of carbohydrates. So if you weigh 100 kilograms, you should be getting about 120 grams of carbohydrates post exercise within that 2 hour window. So you can consume proteins alongside these carbohydrates. Research has shown that this will help increase how much glycogen resynthesis is done. And so that resynthesis is just how much of those sugars our bodies are absorbing and filling back into the muscle. So, kind of a good source of this would be a protein fruit smoothie. So, you get your protein, and that can be a whey protein, and then you get all that glucose, that simple carbohydrates from the fruit in that smoothie. So we know that after workout, we want to get 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight post exercise within that 2 hour window. Over the entire day, how much should we be getting? So a hockey player's diet should consist mostly of foods that are low on that glycemic index, like uh, berries for fruits. So your raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, these, even though they're fruits, are still lower on the index than watermelon and grapes and other fruits that are higher on that glycemic index. Vegetables, whole grains, um, the type of exercise you're doing, the duration of that exercise, and the intensity will dictate how many carbohydrates are required. So if you're practicing for an hour plus, you're going to need more carbohydrates because it's a longer duration. If that practice is, an hour plus, and it's very intense, right? Maybe you got bag skated, maybe coach is trying to send a message, who knows? You're going to need more carbohydrates to replenish all the glycogen that you used during that exercise session, being on the ice, as well as in the gym. Once again, the intensity and the duration of that gym session will determine how many or how much carbohydrates you need to replenish yourself with, and then also throughout the entire day. So typically, we're looking at to get between 8 and 10 kilograms, or sorry, 8 to 10 grams per kilogram of body weight. So, for example, if you weigh 84 kilograms, so you're about 185 pounds, you should be consuming between 370 and 554 carbohydrates daily. Once again, those complex carbohydrates are best, which will help balance your mood, maintain consistent blood sugar levels. They'll fuel the body, which will help for optimal performance. Coming back to that glycogen depletion is a major cause of fatigue and high intensity exercises like hockey, right? So hockey is you go hard for that 30 to about a minute and a half at the absolute most, and you come off. You're on and off, on and off. So that is high intense intermittent exercise. So we need to consume even more carbohydrates, and we got to make sure that once again we're getting them post either practice, game, or exercise to replenish all that glycogen that's used up during those sessions. All right, let's talk about some proteins. So we have two different types of proteins, like carbohydrates. There's two different types. So we have our complete and incomplete proteins. These are also known as essential and non-essential proteins. Complete proteins contain all 8 essential amino acids. So amino acids are the building blocks to proteins, and then the non-complete or the incomplete non-essential proteins are ones that are missing one or more of these amino acids. So there are 20 amino acids that are required to synthesize a new protein. Once again, 8 are essential, and these must be consumed throughout diet. The other 12, the body can synthesize, the body can make the ones up. So 8 we must get through diet. The other 12 the body can make on their own. That's why they're non-essential. The body can do it. The essential ones you must consume. So the amino acids are leucine, isoleucine, valine. These are our essential amino acids, those three. Um, Collectively, they're also known as a branched chain amino acid. So you might have seen the supplement BCAA. That's what that is, your branched chain amino acid. And these ones are most important to facilitate and create muscle protein synthesis. And the most important amino acid is the leucine amino acid. So protein synthesis is the muscles getting bigger. So we're trying to create uh, more muscle fibers. And so we need these amino acids for that action to happen. So, like I said, proteins are built up of amino acids. They're like little building blocks. Once again, the two types are complete and incomplete proteins. So I look at this like a brick wall. So each piece of that brick wall is an amino acid. And so for us to build our wall bigger, we need amino acids to do that. And so proteins get broken down into amino acids. So when you eat a chicken breast, a steak, anything that has protein in it, on the plant-based side, any of your legumes, so your beans, quinoa, you break that down and you take those amino acids and you build up your wall, you build your muscles bigger. So protein is required to support turnover of tissues and it contributes to tissue growth in the body. So if we don't ingest proteins, we're not going to promote and grow new tissue, and muscle is new tissue. In addition, proteins provide, like I said, the building blocks to make many thousands of enzymes that are required to provide energy from the breakdown of carbohydrates and fat. So without proteins, it's harder for us to break down carbohydrates for energy, and it's harder for us to break down fat for energy. So they are very, very important for us to consume in our diet. So the main functions, to go over it again, we have our protein synthesis, which is building of the muscles, leads into building of the muscle, repairs damaged tissue, supports our immune system, and it maintains normal hormonal health. So kind of diving a little bit deeper into that protein synthesis, this is when the body repairs broken down muscle from training and starts to build them bigger and stronger. So when we exercise, we are doing little micro tears and micro damage to our muscle fibers. This is important for growth. So when you exercise and then like the next day or 2 days after, you're really sore because your muscles are slightly broken down. In order for them to get built up higher, think brick wall. So we have our brick wall. As we exercise, we start taking some of those bricks off. Our muscles are sore. We have adequate protein in our diet. So if someone comes with a wheelbarrow with new bricks, we start putting them back up on that wall. And hopefully we have enough that that wall gets bigger. Then the next time we exercise, we break it down a little bit. A new wheelbarrow comes in, we build that wall higher. So if we don't have protein in our diet, we don't get protein synthesis, which is us rebuilding that wall. So some examples of complete proteins are all your meat sources. So beef, pork, chicken, fish, eggs, milk, yogurt, and soybeans are the only plant-based that are complete protein. Incomplete are lentils, beans, tempeh, tofu, quinoa, oats, nuts, nut butters. So it's important to get complete and incomplete protein. So you're not just getting animal protein the whole time, you're also getting plant-based proteins. Even though they're not complete, if you consume a variety of them, they can become complete proteins. So there's other benefits that go along with eating plant-based stuff. So don't just think I gotta just crush meat the whole time. You also have to get in some plant-based protein intake. So how much, right? This is a picture of an egg here. So one fried egg is 7 grams of protein. So if, for your breakfast, if you have 4 eggs in the morning, you're close to 30 grams of protein. You're setting yourself up to meet your RDA, which is your recommended daily allowance of that nutrient. So hockey players should be consuming between 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight to 2.5 grams a kilogram of body weight a day. So once again, if you weigh 84 kilograms, so you're 185 pounds, you should consume between 151 and 210 grams of protein daily. This will support your daily bodily functions, and additional muscle growth and recovery will also take place. They've done some cool research. So consuming more than 2.5 grams of per kilogram of protein a day does not increase muscle mass production or any other type of benefit. So when it comes to protein, more isn't better. So you want to stay in that 1.8 to 2.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. Uh, Breakfast is one of the most important times to eat protein. While we sleep, we go into a catabolic state. So our body has used all the nutrient from dinner to build up what it needs to. And then for the rest of the sleep, we're starting to break things down because there's no more nutrient uh, in our bodies to help with building up. So first thing in the morning, you want to get that protein. That's why I used the 4 eggs for breakfast example. And each meal should be about 0.22 to 0.33 grams per kilogram of body weight. So if you every plate you eat, so if you have 3 meals a day plus snacks in there, each one of those meals should have 0.22 to 0.33 grams per kilogram of protein. So every meal should have protein in it. When is the most important part or important time to consume protein? So protein should be consumed before and after training. It should be consumed before sleep to help build size and strength. And like I said, with each meal. So before training, you'll see a lot of people taking a BCAA. We talked about that earlier. So those are your branch chain amino acids. Those are your three most important amino acids. Or you can take about a 10-gram protein drink. You want to have amino acids in your bloodstream. This is going to help that protein synthesis to start faster while you are exercising. The reason you want it before sleep, once again, as you go to sleep, that body is rebuilding everything. So you want to have that protein available so it can start to replenish your muscles while you sleep. Uh, I would advise having a shake before bed and not a big meal because your body will then use its time to break down that meal rather than allowing you to sleep and replenish muscle. So you won't get as good of a sleep if you have a big meal prior to going to sleep at night because your body is focused on digesting that food. So shakes are the best. They get broken down into amino acids the fastest. They don't take any time to get there, and so you can still get a very good sleep uh, and get the benefit of building up all your muscles while you're sleeping. So let's talk about fats. We have our saturated, we have our trans fats, and our unsaturated fats. And under unsaturated, we have our polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats. Fats are important to have in our diet. Um, there are two fats that we cannot synthesize by the body, and that's our omega-3 and our omega-6 fatty acids. So once again, if we can't synthesize, that means the body can't make it. These must be consumed through diet. Um, these fatty acids, the 3 and 6, will help with reducing inflammation, will help with mental health, and will help with improved concentration in you young athletes. I think for us older people, we might get a little bit of that benefit. It is more prevalent, so it's more important and shows more in the younger athletes. And if they're getting good fatty acids of the 3s and 6s, they'll have higher levels of concentration. So the total functions of fat. So carbohydrates is primary energy source. Fat is a secondary source of fuel. And so fat will be metabolized, will be broken down if exercise is prolonged past 2 hours. So this isn't something that we really have to worry about because our games and our practices are all short. Even though a game might last longer than 3 hours, it's all intermittent, right? In a 20-minute period, you might play 18 minutes, and then you get about 15 minutes of nothing as you sit in the locker room as the Zamboni does its job, and then you're back out there for another 18 minutes. So even though the duration is possibly close to 3 hours, your exercise is at the most an hour. So we're not really going to use fats as energy as much. Now, that doesn't mean they're not important. We want to make sure that we're getting enough fat in our diet because it helps maintaining the cell integrity, especially with the brain's communication network. So if we're thinking high function on the ice or in training or in practice, we got to have enough fat so our brain can function at its best. And then also it aids in the absorption of vitamin A, D, E, and K. These are all fat solubles. So without fat in our diet, we can't absorb those vitamins. And then it also promotes the feeling of being full and it improves taste, texture, and flavor. So we're better off to have a little bit of fat in our diet for taste and texture and flavor than to have sugar. Because if it's not fat, it's going to be sugar. So you want to make sure that you're getting the fat because it is important. So some examples of our monounsaturated would be our canola oils, olive oils, avocado, peanut oils, cashews, and then polyunsaturated almonds, walnuts, pecans, sesame, safflower, um, the margarine, and fatty fish like salmon. So the omega 3s and 6 fatty acids, like I said, those are polyunsaturated fats, and they can be found in walnuts, almond, sunflower seeds, as well as some other things. And then our omega 3 fatty acids can be found in walnuts, salmon, and flax seeds, as well as some other things. So it's important to consume those through diet because our body can't make them. Our saturated fats, coconut oils, palm oils, vegetable shortening, butter, cheese, egg yolks, meat, poultry, and then the trans fats, fried foods, baked items, anything that's been sit on the shelf for years on end would have trans fats in it. So trans fats help preserve foods, and so when you eat trans fats, you are also preserving yourself. This is not a good thing. You want stuff to break down and rebuild up. When you have those trans fats, it doesn't can't go through the same process. So you want to avoid trans fats, especially coming from processed foods. You will get some trans fats in meat products. That's totally fine because it is a natural source. Trans fats should also be limited because they increase your low density lipoprotein cholesterol and lower your high density lipoprotein cholesterol, meaning it raises your bad cholesterol and it lowers your good cholesterol. So it has a double negative, which doesn't actually equal a positive. It's doing two really, really bad things. This also increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. So you just want to avoid it, especially when it comes to training, because it will prevent uh, what you need to gain muscle. So how much fat should we get? So this half an avocado is 15 grams of fat. So avocado is a great source of healthy fats. Our fats should provide about 35% of our total energy intake. So if we were to look at a plate, 35% of that plate of what we consume in a day should come from fat. And then no more than 11% coming from saturated fats. So of that 35%, kind of like that 1/3 should be saturated fats. Everything else should be unsaturated. So the healthier the fats. And we want to consume at least 1 gram per kilogram of body weight a day. Yet we should be closer to 1.5.
Wait, did you say 11% saturated fat or unsaturated fat?
Good question. Yeah, so saturated fat. So no more than 11% should be saturated fat. So if we go back to here, so coconut oils, palm oils, vegetable shortening, butter, cheese, egg, yogurt. So of those things there, and obviously there's more as well, less than 11% of your diet should come from things in this column here. Are we good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've gone over carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So carbohydrates takes up the biggest portion of that plate, protein takes the next, and then fat is that last little bit.
What would be the percentages for those two? The other two?
So carbohydrates should be closer to like 50%.
Okay.
So then we're at 85. So then protein is the rest. So now that the carbohydrate one will fluctuate based off of exercise intensity and duration. So rather than looking at um, the percent base, like use those numbers. So your protein should be 1.8 to 2.5 grams per kilogram. So you got to figure out how much you weigh in kilograms. So you take your body weight in pounds and then divide it by 2.2.
All right.
So then you would multiply that by 1.8, which would give your like your low end, and then your 2.5 would be your high end. And you're like, that's how many grams of protein I should consume in a day. And then for your carbohydrates, 8 would be your low end and 10 would be your high end. And then for
Okay.
fats, it'd be 1 to 1.5. Are we good to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. So talking about hydration, so you might not think that hydration has a direct correlation to gaining muscle. Yet, if you're not hydrated, you can't perform at your best. So if you're not hydrated, then you can't train as hard in the gym. And if you can't train as hard in the gym, then you're not going to get as much muscle mass as you're looking for. So hydration for athletes is one of the easiest things you can do to perform at your best. You want to drink plenty of fluids before, during, and after exercise. And because we lose a lot of water when we breathe, so when we sleep, right, we have lots of inhale and exhale happening. Hopefully, no one's holding their breath while they sleep. So we are actually dehydrating ourselves while we sleep. So the first thing we want to do in the morning is drink about 200 to 300 mils of water. This will help combat any dehydration that we do have that was caused throughout the night. So we want to kind of start the day on the right foot. So we think good hydration and good protein first thing in the morning. So we want to make sure that we're starting this muscle building process as soon as we wake up. Then throughout the day, we want to sip on water every like 15 to 20 minutes. Once you feel thirsty, it's too late. You're already dehydrated. So we never want to have that sensation of, oh man, I'm thirsty, because that means you haven't been drinking enough. So if we just kind of think every 15, 20 minutes to take a little bit of sip of water, then you will meet your daily water intake. And now, if you are someone who does sweat a lot, well, then you're going to have to drink a little bit more water and also add a little bit of salt. So you need some sodium in your diet. You can put it right in your water if you want, or just add a little bit more to your food. Salt attracts water. So if we have salt in our diet, we are going to hold on to more water, which will allow us to be more hydrated. If we sweat a lot and we don't consume that sodium, that salt, we drink the water, we'll just flush it right back out, either through the sweat or through urination. So put salt on your food or salt in your water if you're someone who sweats a lot. That'll help you stay more hydrated. They've done some research, and so the literature has found that a 2% decrease in body weight, which correlates directly to dehydration, right? You're not losing fat during a hockey game. You're not losing muscle mass during a hockey game. It is purely hydration, right? Our body's like 80% of our body is made up of water. So when we lose 2%, it's not a lot. So if you weigh 100 pounds, that's 2 pounds. And so guys will lose, obviously, the heavier you are, the more you'll lose. But guys that are like 180 pounds, they'll lose 4 or 5 pounds during a game. So a 2% loss in body weight is related to a significant loss in strength. So if we're not hydrated and we're trying to go to the gym and lift weights, then we're not going to be as strong. And in order to gain muscle mass, you have to lift some heavier weights. You have to have some strength to you. So we don't want to lose out on that by being dehydrated. So while it might not be a direct cause of muscle mass, it does play the role in how much muscle mass you can gain, right? Because if you aren't as strong, you can't lift as much, you can't stress the muscle as much, you can't get as much muscle breakdown to then build that wall back up. Uh, Kind of an easy rule of thumb to know if you're hydrated or not, whether you want to do it or not, is to look at your urine. So if you are very hydrated, your urine will be somewhat pale, little bit of yellow in it. That means you're very hydrated. So every time you pee, check your pee. If it is dark looking yellow, almost think like apple juice like, that means you're extremely dehydrated. So you never want to get to that dark yellow urine. You want to keep it on the pale, almost clear side. So a couple signs of dehydration is dizzy, lightheadedness, rapid heartbeat, dry skin. So especially in the winter, like dryness, like dry lips, dry hands, that type of stuff can be dehydration. Obviously, cramping, increased body temperature, and feeling tired or irritable. So if you kind of sensing these things, probably dehydrated. You might not think this is possible, but you can be overhydrated. So if your stomach is bloated, you feel nauseous, feel like vomiting, you're confused or disorientated, chances are you're overhydrated. Um, so do pay attention to that. Chances are you will never get there. Uh, you're probably going to be more on the signs of dehydration. So just pay attention to both because we don't want either one to happen. All right, so now the most important part. So we kind of laid the foundation of all the nutrients we need that are important. So how do we put this together? So here are the keys to adding muscle. So you have to know your BMR, that is your basal metabolic rate. Uh, we need to consume our caloric intake by 300 calories a day. So sometimes you'll see it 300 kcals or 300 calories. It's the same thing at the end of the day. The scientific way of doing it is kcals, kilocalories. Most people just write calories. So if you see both, it's the same thing. Um, and you want to make sure your daily protein intake here it's 1.2 to 2.2. That's like on the low end. You want to be 1.8 to 2.5 though. So you need an additional 300 calories every day, more than you're burning, and that will help you gain 1 to 2 pounds of muscles per week. And your carbohydrate intake needs to be high, so you're not breaking down muscle to supply your body with energy and get in 8 to 12 hours a night. So how do we figure out our BMR? So if you guys can screenshot this, because this is, or if you're writing it down, write it down. So this is a formula you need to have. So to figure out your BMR, which is your resting metabolic rate. So your metabolic rate is how many calories you burn. So resting means you're not doing anything. So this is the amount of energy needed to maintain normal homeostatic physiological function in a rested, fastest, and thermoneutral state. So what that means is you're lying in bed and you're doing nothing. This is how many calories your body would need and use to keep you alive. So you're not hot, you're not cold. That's your thermal neutral. So you're in the middle and you're just sitting there. So heart rate, organ function, respiration rate. So your lungs, inhale, exhale, all that type of stuff. So your BMR is just keeping you alive. So you need to figure what that out is first. And then you can start to figure out, okay, well, how many calories you need to consume on top of that, plus how much you are burning in activity.
Could we go back to that last slide for a minute?
Yes, absolutely. This one here. Oh, how do I let this person in? Hmm, there you go. Reed, you're late to the party. Let me know once I can move on past this slide.
Hello?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm ready now.
pretty sure I'm recording this properly, so you should be able to watch it after.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we good?
Yeah, you're good.
Who-
Yeah, sorry there.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we got to get the calories. So athletes under 20, which are all you guys, you're still growing. So it's strongly recommended that you don't get into what's called a negative energy balance and you have sufficient energy available for growth. Energy availability is the amount of energy left for the body to go through its formation of bone growth, organ growth, and all normal growing functions. So if you have chronic low energy availability, this will result in impaired growth and maturation of tissues, organs, reduced skeletal bone mineral and suppression of the immune system. So not only is this likely to have a negative effect on your performance, it's also going to have an effect on your long-term physical and physiological health. So basically what that means is, getting back to that BMR, so your basal metabolic rate. So if you're eating just enough, but you're playing hockey and exercising and doing all those things, your body will take those calories and the carbohydrates and the proteins and the fats, and they will apply it to your exercising. And then you're not going to have anything left for like your normal function. So you're not going to grow as tall. You're going to have weaker bones, more susceptible to injury, and your immune system will be not as strong, right? Your immune system will be suppressed. So you have to make sure you're getting enough calories because you don't want to get into that um, energy, that negative energy availability. So you want to make sure you have enough energy available so everything can take place. So good rule of thumb, just like the water one, drinking kind of that every 15 to 20 minutes. On the caloric side, so the food side, you want to make sure that you're eating every 3 to 4 hours. So I like to have three big meals a day. So your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then within that, you have snacks. So you have your mid-morning snack and your mid-afternoon snack, and then your going to bed snack. So you end up having three meals that are like pretty hearty and heavy. Then you have three, possibly like four snacks on top of that. So you're consuming enough throughout the day. So you're getting food in you every 3 to 4 hours. You're always fueling the car, right? Go back to that video at the start of that supercar, engine blows up. We don't want that happening to us. So a few supplements or things that the body kind of needs and uses for function. So iron. Iron is an essential element for blood production. And because a large percentage of it is found in red blood cells, it's very important because red blood cells contain a protein called hemoglobin, and hemoglobin plays an essential role in oxygen delivery, uptake, and utilization. So what this means is when you exercise, you start breathing heavy, your body is taking in more oxygen. And then the body takes that oxygen in the red blood cells and it like delivers it to the working muscle. So I think of it like a bus. So the bus driver opens the door, all this oxygen comes in the bus, that bus representing our red blood cell, hemoglobin, and then it drives it down to your legs because your legs are working hard. You're skating hard on the ice, you're training hard in the gym, and it drives it to the muscle. It opens a door, and that oxygen comes out, and now those muscles can do its job and do it better. So without enough iron, this process can't happen as efficiently. So it doesn't happen as easily. And then we're going to gas out sooner. We're not going to be able to push as hard in the gym. If we can't push as hard in the gym, our muscles don't get as big and we don't put on weight. So the RDA, the recommended daily allowance for men, is 7 to 11 milligrams per day, and then for women it's 7 to 27. So women's higher, and you can talk to your parents as to why. Good on that? I'll take your silence as a yes. So calcium. Calcium is vital for growth, maintenance, and repair of bone. It helps with muscle contraction and nerve conduction, and we should be consuming 2,000 for females and 3,000 IU. So IUs is a measurement tool, just like mg is milligrams and kgs is kilograms. IU they'll use with supplements sometimes, and that's just how much you should take. So if you buy a calcium supplement bottle, it'll say on there how much it is. Um, it's best to get it from whole foods, so milk, Greek yogurt, kale are some of the best ways to get calcium in. So once again, we need calcium because calcium helps with the contraction of the muscle. So the better that muscle can contract, the more power and force it can produce, which allows us to be stronger and lift more weight. It helps with that nerve conduction. So the nerve is sent to the muscle, which causes it to contract. And then it helps with decreasing the risk of stress fractures, right? So we, obviously, if we have any type of injury, especially a stress fracture, it's going to prevent us from training as hard in the gym. So supplements should only be needed when there's a deficiency. And so always go recommend seeing a sports registered dietitian if you feel like you are deficient in anything nutrition wise. Don't go to someone that just has studied nutrition like myself. Go to a registered dietitian. These people go to school for 7 years to know all this stuff. So go see them. Vitamin D, another very important vitamin in the body. So if we go back to our fat and why it's important, right? We can't absorb vitamin D unless we have sufficient fat intake in our diet. So vitamin D plays a role in maintaining bone health. It also a nutrient of consideration to help improve athletic performance. And it does this because it regulates the expression of genes that enhance calcium absorption. Calcium helps with muscle contraction and helps with bone density, makes our bones stronger and more dense, and helps with muscle contraction and nerve function and blood vessel expansion. So if we can get more oxygen to our tissues, we can train harder. Fatigue will be less. So that because of these things, we can say that vitamin D has a role in athletic performance. So research has determined optimal level for vitamin D is um, about 800 IU's per day. Once again, if you feel like you are low on this, you can go get your blood work done, ask, get your blood vitamin D levels checked, and then you'll see where you are. And then if you need to, you can always supplement and take more to get it up to the recommended um, allowance. So once again, it's best to get this from a dietary like food source. Salmon, mushrooms contain high levels of vitamin D. Obviously, where we live in the summertime, there's lots of vitamin D outside. Winter, it's harder to get. So supplement can be recommended. Once again, go to a registered dietitian, speak with them about it, get your blood work done so you actually know what your levels are at. Okay, now for the supplements that you probably want to take that you go to Popeyes or Supplement World or GNC to get. So it's important to remember that no supplement can compensate for a suboptimal diet. So if you're not consuming whole foods and you're not eating the best you can eat, don't look to supplements. Increase your diet first. So getting good whole foods first and foremost. And then once that is maxed out, then you can kind of look to supplement. So you want to make sure once again to look at your overall dietary patterns. Like what are you eating? When are you eating it? Is it to the best of your ability? Is it the best of what's available? If it is, then look to supplements. Um, Supplements really are only important for people that are deficient. So I'm going to resort back to consult a registered dietitian. Um, Having said that, though, because of busy schedules, and limited availability or lack of convenience in the consumption of whole foods, especially protein sources, it is recommended to take a protein supplement. They're easy to consume, they don't take any time to digest, and you can do it on the run. The other thing too, there's only a few supplements that have been proven to work. There's the supplement industry is like $1 trillion business, so they'll tell you every little thing under the sun works. At the end of the day, caffeine's been proven, creatine, sodium bicarbonate, beta alanine, and nitrate. So this is the ACSM study. This is back in 2016. They said these are the only ones that work. So yes, a protein supplement works because they're amino acids. It's not under there because it's basically a food supplement. I don't recommend you guys taking caffeine. If you need to get up for a workout or a game, go to bed earlier the night before. You're too young to resort to caffeine supplementation. So eliminate all those pre-workouts with like 200 to 400 milligrams of caffeine. Those are going to stop your heart. So, and you want to look for the following labels. So this NSF and this informed choice. If this isn't on your supplement bottles, I don't recommend taking it. So under the current Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, the regulations are the critical responsibilities of producing safe supplements and having adequate evidence to support legal label claims. The people that are tasked with this are the product manufacturers themselves. So what that means is protein A is being produced, and the company of protein A says these are the ingredients in our protein, and this is what our protein does for you if you take it. No one is going to step in and say otherwise. We just have to take their word on it. And because it's such a industry, right? It's $1 trillion industry, or just close enough to that. There's a lot of false claims being made because it sells. So it's at the end of the day, it's marketing. Unless this NSF or this informed choice is on the bottles, whoever's making the supplements will say that they're safe. So these are third party companies. So they go in and they test the product and they say, yes, what is in this bottle is actually in that bottle, and nothing more, nothing less. So it is estimated that between 5 and 20% of dietary supplements contain unlabeled ingredients, pharmaceuticals, or prohibited substances. So unless it has an NSF or informed choice, 5 to 20% of what you're taking has something in it that is not on the label. So you be cautious with what you ingest. All right, now the magic ingredient. What allows all of this to happen? It's sleep. If you don't sleep enough, your training, your diet, all that stuff, you're not going to uh, create a full circle with it. So sleep allows all the exercising and eating to create adaptation, and that adaptation is to gain muscle. So going back to the earlier slides, muscle glycogen is stored energy of carbohydrates. When we don't get enough sleep, the body becomes less sensitive to insulin. And when we're less sensitive to insulin, the body can't fill the muscles with as much glycogen. So we become what's called insulin, we have an insulin sensitivity. So if we don't sleep enough, we can't replenish all that stored energy in our muscles. So when we go to train, we're not going to have as much in the tank. So you have to get sleep. Um, Sleep also helps reduce inflammation. It helps with the repair of the micro tears in the muscles caused by lifting weights. And this is how our muscles get bigger. So inflammation, obviously, if your joints are sore, well, you have to sleep a little bit more because it helps flush that inflammation out so you can train hard again the next day. And I would say the most important thing that happens during sleep is the secretion of hormones. And so the ones that we care about the most is growth hormone and testosterone. A study done by Takahashi and Kippens and found that participants who delayed their sleep also had their peak growth hormone secretion delayed, and when their sleep was shorter, they had less secretion in total throughout the whole night. So if you don't go to sleep on time, and that bedtime is around 9:30, 10 o'clock, you delay it to when that growth hormone is secreted, and then you get less of that hormone secreted throughout the entire night. So you got to make sure that you're going to bed so you can allow these things to happen. Sleep also helps with injury reduction. When you don't sleep enough, the tissues don't repair and they're more susceptible to injury, which reduces training volume and less muscle mass. So, quick summary: get your carbohydrates in you, 8 to 10 grams per kilogram body weight. Get your protein in you, your 1.8 to 2.5 grams per kilogram body weight. Fat, 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram body weight. Hydration, I like to be about 2 to 4 liters a day. If you sweat more, you should be closer to that 4 liters a day. And if you sweat more, add some sodium into your diet. And then sleep, 8 to 10 hours a night. Make sure you're going to bed around that 9:30, 10 o'clock, so all this change can happen. So in order to gain your 10 pounds of muscle, figure out your BMR, figure out how much you're doing as far as energy expenditure, right? How much are you training? How much are you skating? How much are you doing all those things? And you got to consume 300 additional calories per day. So BMR plus how much you are burning during these activities. And then add 300 calories plus to that. And then you'll gain about 1 to 2 pounds of muscle per week. So you're about 2.5 months away from gaining your 10 pounds.